Now, we know that AI can help us analyze massive amounts of data. It can tailor our online experience. It can tell us things that we didn't even know about ourselves. It can tailor that experience around our interests, show us relevant content. It can provide us with a much more personalized experience. But is there a danger in all of this, that we miss out on diverse viewpoints, that we don't hear opposing views? What does it mean as well from a marketing point of view for those businesses and organizations who are simply trying to sell us things? How do they know what we really want? So let's explore that, and I'm delighted to welcome as my guest Mostafa Elbermawy, who's the Chief Executive of NoGood. It's a growth consultancy in New York that helps brands like TikTok, Oura Ring, and Infection AI grow. He's also the founder of Goody AI. Welcome. You're going to make me do some work now. Actually, I have to talk as well as not just read. Mostafa, lovely to have you with us. Thank you so much. And we're talking, and the title of this session is about influence. It's about how all of this technology can influence the way we perceive the world. It's probably worth starting with what we mean by influence. Just put it into context for us here. What are we talking about when we talk about AI and its ability to influence us?
So essentially, we're going through like a major platform shift, right? Like we have these large language models and introduce sort of what we call semantic understanding, right? So when you have that, essentially, like, you know, you have these large language models actively telling our stories, our narratives, helping us make buying decisions, and really like just like doing the critical thinking part of what you used to do on the internet. So what we're saying is, you know, ChatGPT right now is getting about 3 billion visits a month. These are the most recent expectations. So it's essentially like, you know, if you look at search as a use case to make it more specific, we've moved from like these blue links that we used to have for the past 25 years, and right now we actively have these sort of like personalized answers that are actually like giving us the answer right away instead of choosing between a bunch of answers. And that's incredibly powerful, and it's influencing a lot of decision right now. It's a digital shelf that is created, and it's being used by a lot of tools right now, and it's, you know, Apple Intelligence was just recently launched, and we have Llama right now have it as the search bar. So it's essentially like you have, you know, I would assume about close to 1 billion people actively using it, and it's taken the interaction layer on the web. So the traditional web used to have a lot of links, and you got to click on a bunch of things, and right now our web is getting summarized for us and personalized, and that interaction layer is actually influencing us and making decision for us. And, you know, today I was searching for the best AI conference in the world that I should go to. I believe we are here, like again, GAIN is I've been to a lot of AI conferences, and I'm incredibly impressed about what I've seen here in the past day, and it's not in the top 5. So someone is telling our story and our narrative, and I believe it should be in the top 5, and that's exactly what influence is.
And I wonder, therefore, how we are influenced, because, you know, I posed a question in that introduction there about, you know, we see the benefit of it. It's about a tailored experience. It's about finding things that we are specifically interested in. It's about being presented with perceived options around our interests. But there is a dark side of this. There is a danger, isn't there, that we only see that one viewpoint, that curated viewpoint that is presented to us. So talk to me about whether we can open up that influence to say, you know what, actually, I am quite interested in those other things.
There are certainly ways, it's a great question, there are certainly ways to influence these models, and I do agree with you that there's some, you know, we can talk about the loss of choice and what that actually means for us, but like, you know, back to sort of our, I guess, our area of expertise here, there are ways to influence these models, and whether it's the corpus of data that it's trained on, and again, identifying these data points, but also you can also identify the signals that are actually driving the specific answers. And we've actually built an in-house, like a tool that we have right now in closed beta with some of our select partners, that essentially what it does is monitor, analyze, and optimize for these LLMs at scale. And it does exactly that. And there's a whole discipline that is created right now is answer engine optimization, which is like playing on search engine optimization. There's answer engine optimization, and these answer engines that we're using.
Yeah, and just talk to me about that AEO. That'll be a relatively new concept for some people. So just explain that. How does it work?
AEO it's really all about figuring out how these large language models, how to get essentially your answer and your narrative. on these large language models. It's essentially identifying, let's take the example about the best AI conferences, right? Like, you need to identify what is actually driving these answers. What are the specific sources that are driving these answers? Is there a feedback loop in this model? What is the corpus of data that it's trained on? And how can I go in and intentionally impact some of these signals that are driving the answers to begin with? And that's exactly what AEO is.
And we know, too, that this is about marketing. This is essentially about the ability to sell us things. As an organization, it's about working out who your customer is, what they want, and how you sell to them. How are businesses using this as a tool in the way that sort of more traditional marketing never could?
This is massive. I mean, we're seeing traditional search right now there's 3 billion people that come to ChatGPT like every month. These 3 billion people used to find the answer somewhere. And my assumption is the answer used to be Google. Whether the data is out or not, I don't think that's the question. The question is there's a new use case, there's a newly created digital shelf, and it's impacting you today. The fact that we don't have like the digital tools to track it and all the clicks and Google Analytics and everything that we used to in the past 25 years doesn't mean that it's not influencing us. So it's influencing us, and the way you look at it is visibility tracking and monitoring, which is what we've built. So how is that impacting brands? I don't think brands know the answer, but what we do know is that when you come first, it impacts you. And there might not be sort of like a very specific statistical way to track this directly because these LLMs haven't opened that part up yet. But I think we're seeing companies like Perplexity starting to put ads. We're seeing, Search GPT is out right now, and there's probably going to be the Search GPT analytics tool. So there's a whole we were effectively moved to that answer engine, but our entire tech stack have not actively moved, and that's exactly what we're building.
Yes, and that is one of the challenges, isn't it? And so talk to me about the difficulties of firms deploying this at scale. They might say, look, yes, I'm on board, I see the benefit of this. How do they do it?
So essentially, you have companies like McDonald's, right? Like they have, let's say, 33,000, branches around the world. So there are people that talk about what to eat, where to eat, in so many different languages, in so many different cities. And this is a company that it's very important that their narrative and their perspective is constantly sort of presented in the best way. But if you get out there and these LLMs are trained on corpus of data and a lot of it is user-generated content, so a company like McDonald's might not have the best sort of outlook. Whether you like their burgers or not, that's not the question. The question is they care about the narrative, and they care about sort of making sure that their story is being told the way they want to tell that story. And we have built a technology that essentially allows them to do that, not only track it, analyze it, and understand the sentiment that comes with it, understand the competitive benchmarking piece, but also make sure that you have the very specific, tangible way to influence that today. So if you search, again, this might be a flex, but if you search for the best growth marketing agencies in the US, we come up #1. If you search for the best digital, if you search for the best digital bank in the US, you will find Chime, our partner, comes #1. Best gaming tool, or the gaming keyboard or gaming headset, SteelSeries will come #1. We've actively worked on that, but that's more of a reductive way to describe that. But there's a lot of other sort of less lower intent things that you can do that can actually drive your narrative today. And it doesn't have to be just narrative for brands. It's narrative about everything in society because, as I said, these sort of beasts are telling our stories today, and we need to have a way to sort of understand them, analyze them, and have an intentional way to actually directly influence them.
So, and that's part of the brand reputation, isn't it? That narrative is so important. Talk to me, though, about the other challenges here, because I'm thinking straight away you've got an ethical issue, you've got a reputational thing, you've got to think about data protection. That all figures into this, because ultimately, whilst we might all want to be sold to, we want to have this tailored experience, we're also wary of that, of being oversold or over-personalized. Where is the balance? How do you tread that fine line?
No, it's a great question. I think there are a lot of the newer answer engines, like let's say Perplexity and even ChatGPT, is really aware of the fact that ads ruined the search experience overall, and ads are going to be a lot more contextual in the future. Yep. People are aware. So obviously users will always adapt what they see, and they're going to understand that some of these answers might be influenced just like where people are now aware of how that works in search, and people are aware of the ads. So I think user behavior typically evolves, but right now I just think that our tech stack is far behind, and there's sort of the past 2 years we have these answer engines, sort of how many people here use ChatGPT? Raise your hands. Essentially everybody. Obviously it's a biased answer because we're a gain, right? But how many people here use Perplexity, for example? A lot of people. So essentially these tools they're finding answers today on these tools and not Google, and again, it's influencing our buying decisions and choices that we're making.
And I suppose that raises, we've got a little time left, but it raises, the flip side argument of protecting brand across that, and you've touched on it already, but how do brands make sure that the image, of the answers that are being put out there by this technology are the answers that they want? How do they protect themselves?
How do they protect? I mean, obviously, you gotta have a good product and a good reputation. Reputation management matters. So we're not saying that we're gonna hack you, like, you look a certain way and we're gonna change it, right? I think reputation management matters and having a good product matters. But essentially, like, you need to first be aware of what is being like, what's your story? Like, do you have this story about you on that mirror reflection? But you need to be aware of what is being told out there. And these AI answer engines are already telling your story. So the first thing that you do is to monitor and analyze, and do that across languages, and do that across sort of the different LLMs. And by the way, if you ask ChatGPT any questions, it's gonna give you a different answer every time. And memories are the new cookies, right? Like, based on the memory, based on who's asking, and soon we're gonna have a layer of personalization even added more and more embedded into these LLMs, so you're gonna get a different answers every time. So tracking it is difficult. So making sure, again, back to your question, the first thing is making sure that you track and monitor, and the second thing is making sure they understand the corpus of data that are driving these answers, and then work on influencing these answers at scale.
And just a final thought, from a marketing point of view, despite all of these new tools and these new facilities that this technology will enable us to offer, it comes back to really basic principles of marketing, though, doesn't it?
Absolutely, everything. I mean, if you really like unbundle and sort of like remove all the noise, a lot of these sort of like shiny tools, essentially, a lot of it comes back to the principle thinking. But once again, I think that you can argue the same thing about the digital shelf that was created over the past sort of 20 years with just social media, right? Like, essentially, if you actually tell a good story, you're gonna do well in social media, but everything has its own sort of like, unique variables and levers that you can actually track and understand and unbundle, and really to be able to, like, be in the driving seat rather than have your story being told by these LLMs and you have no influence over it.
Mostafa, our time is up, but it's been so good to talk to you. Thank you. Really appreciate
Likewise, Ben.
That insight. Everyone, Mostafa Elbermawy, their founder and chief executive of NoGood. Thank you.
Thank you.
So nice to see you. Thank you so much. Please.